good evening, folks. Welcome back to the farm. She's a foggy one here this evening. In fact, it's foggy all day. Foggy for a couple of days, really. It's getting kind of cold, getting kind of humid. And what does that mean? Well, it's going to mean that a whole bunch of moisture is going to be entering the chicken house, and we're going to have to manage it. So maybe you're asking yourself, well, why does it really matter if there's moisture in the chicken house? Well, I'll tell you right now. Chicken poop and moisture makes one thing: ammonia. You know what ammonia is? It'll take your breath away, and not in a good way. So after I feed these winged terrorists, I'll show you our deep litter and how we're using that to keep the chicken house warm. But because we're using it to keep the chicken house warm, it does mean it's a whole management thing. Oftentimes deep litter is thought of as a set it and forget it methodology. And the reality is, if you set it and forget it, it will remind you with your nose in a very short period of time. So I'm in our chicken house now, and as you can see, it's not very palatial or fancy. It's very simple, very humble. It's actually an old granary that we converted. It's 12 by 16 feet, and it works quite well. It's nice and insulated. We re-insulated the walls, some fiberglass, some sheep's wool. In fact, the roof is all done with sheep's wool that we reclaimed off our own sheep that we raise here on the farm. And in the corner, I've got, as you can see, a pile of material. So on the floor, we've got about 6 to 8 inches of wood shavings, chicken manure, feathers because they're just coming out of the molt. And in the pile, you can see there's the odd spot here. We've got some twigs and stuff like that. This is actually when we harvested the sunflowers. They never grew more than about 4 feet this year. So didn't get much from them. So I just harvested them, chuck them in here. Chuck them in the pile, they can compost down. And they act as really good oxygen dams. So just like in any compost pile, when you add twigs or a little bit of harder matter, it helps to create a little bit of a barrier for a pocket of oxygen to form. Helps you with fluffing up your pile and keeping things separated. So it's going to work quite well in here. And every 2 weeks thereabouts, I come in and I stack this pile up into the corner, and it gets quite warm. Now, if it's just dry material and it's just oxygen, it doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. But as I mentioned, the humidity's coming up. So when the girls come through the hatch over here, they're dragging in a little bit of mud, a little bit of moisture. Mostly the stuff that comes in off their feet is actually what drags the humidity into the house, because we don't keep water in the house here. We have a heated water that I try to keep outside, with the exception of some of the really, really cold days where we can't keep it defrosted outside. Anyways, as I was alluding to earlier, moisture management. So we're getting into that time of year when, yes, the girls are going to drag in moisture. Yes, the coop's going to be a little bit more closed up. Yes, we'll have to ventilate a little bit for sure. But general rule is you're probably going to want to keep your doors and windows closed so that you keep, the winter outside and keep it kind of nice and cozy inside, right? So then that means you're going to have to manage moisture that maybe does exist inside the coop. And we can do a lot of that with the compost pile. So you're going to want to add a lot of dry material up front in the months leading up to autumn and winter. And right now, as we're just getting into autumn, we want that pile to look dry and crumbly and just like this, right? Now over the next couple of weeks, before we get into the cold season, you'll see a lot more humidity, a lot more moisture get dragged into the coop. And this will eventually form the consistency of almost like a doughy type material, where you can actually squeeze it and it'll stay in a ball, and then you'll be able to crumble that ball easily enough and it will break up. It won't be sticky, and gross. It'll actually just stay in a ball, and then you can break it up quite easily. And that's generally when you got the right consistency. Now, if you squeeze it and water runs out of it, well, you got two options. You can either bring a lot of dry material in, and you're going to need an awful lot of dry material, or you can get that exceptionally wet, moist material out, because, as I mentioned earlier, that's just going to create an awful lot of ammonia. And likewise, if your pile is too dry, it's maybe a good time to stop adding quite as much dry material. Typically, if we're getting ahead of ourselves here, I'll stop adding bags of dry material, and I'll just change out what's in the nesting boxes every week kind of thing, and just add a little bit instead of, you know, adding a half a bag or something like that. Anyways, I'm not gonna get too much into deep litter. I've done literally dozens of videos on this over the course of last winter, and I'm probably gonna do dozens more over the winter to come. Right now, I gotta get out into the garden. We've had our first and second snowfall already, and we're getting frost every day, and I know there's some carrots in the ground. They gotta make it landward. The wife's gonna make some clam chowder here, so she's gonna need some carrots for that. So I got my little helper here now. Say hello.
No.
No. We're over here in the pig pen, giving them some snacks. We already dug our carrots. Some of those carrots, man, oh man, they are huge. They're about as big around as my forearm. I don't know if that says something for the carrots or if that just says something for my lack of attendance at the gym, but nevertheless, the carrots are big this year, so that's good. And so we're over at the pig pen, and the reason we're here is not just to give them snacks. The reason we are here is because you can see what they've done to the gate. I had a little sheet of tin on the front of the gate to act as a visual barrier so they wouldn't put pressure on the gate because they were getting out lots. And well, I just zip tied the tin on, and eventually they get the better of that. Now I can't open that gate and fix that gate without these 200-pound eating machines being more than curious, and I really am not too keen on them being curious about me. So I found some surplus eggs that we had. We had lots of extra eggs laid this week here, so I'm just gonna dump them in. A nice little snack here that'll keep them busy. I'll fix the gate with well, haywire. Can't go wrong with this stuff. Anyways, that will last a lot longer than the zip tie, I think. Ready? Should we dump them?
Oh.
Do they like them? Yeah. So I got the gate all finished up here. As you can see, we got a layer of mesh on one side, and it's actually like the concrete, the mesh that goes inside concrete as a reinforcement. And on the outside, we got a piece of roofing tin to act as the visual barrier, plus a secondary physical barrier. And yeah, the zip ties just didn't hold it on, so the haywire should definitely do it. And the reason why we've got something so sturdy and heavy duty on there, I mean, these pigs, when they got here, were small enough they could have fit through this 4x4 squares. Like, they're just tiny little wiener pigs, right? So we wanted that secondary visual layer as well. But also when they're older, because, you know, they have got out a few times, that visual barrier does help protect them, or protect us, I guess, from having to chase them all around the yard. Now, why so heavy duty? Well, let me tell you, the teeth on those pigs can go through bone just like butter. So that's the other reason why I don't spend a lot of time in here without maybe having them distracted by snacks. I know when I'm the one bringing the snacks in, I got to bring it directly into the pen. I'm usually bucket directly in front of me, and I'm always maintaining, you know, a front area of control with the pigs. I never want to turn my backs on them, especially when they hit this right around the 200-pound mark, because the reality is they're big enough now. If I went down, they could take me, and I don't really feel like being an hors d'oeuvre. Anyhow, it's, what is it now, almost 8:30-ish. Charlotte, we just got her off to bed. She's been an absolute handful here the last couple of days. In fact, last night, I don't know what time it was, by the time we finally got her to sleep, it must have been close to 10 o'clock. And then she was up just before 5 this morning. And then here this evening, she was a handful again to get to sleep. So she's, she's not the early to bed, early to rise. She's just kind of running her own show here right now, a little bit of chaos and mayhem. So I think I'm going to try and get some sleep while I can. So I'll let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.